Hi, my name is J.R. Tallman, and in this NetSuite tutorial, I will be going through how to customize financial reports. NetSuite reports, and specifically financial reports, are located underneath Reports, Financial. Here, you'll see all the different financial reports within NetSuite. In this tutorial, I will be customizing the income statement report, but the same customization options appear for most of the reports that you see within this area. Before I go into the income statement report, you'll want to notice that this has a summary report if you just click on the title, and then also has a detail report if you click on the detail. Once we go into the report, we're able to customize the report itself, but you can also customize the summary or the detail respectively by clicking on either of these options. Once I click on the report name itself, this will take me into the summary report. Once in the summary report, the first thing you're going to notice is the view detail at the top of the page. You can click on this and this will take you to the detail, which will show the individual transactions. You can also click on an amount for each of these rows, and this will also take you into the detail income statement for each of these accounts that you click on. Either way will take you into the detail. Before we get into how to customize the actual report, I do want to take a look at the footer options. The first thing you're going to notice is the period selection. You can go ahead and select this, the from and the to, or use the available selector to select an available period. The next is the subsidiary context, and you can run this at an individual subsidiary, or you can run it at a consolidated level. The next field here is the column. Now, by default, this is listed as total, but a very common column option here is going to be accounting period. If you do have periods selected with a from and to range, you can simply click on accounting period and refresh this, and this will show your income statement by accounting periods, as you can see on the screen. Otherwise, you can go ahead and simply change this to another option with department, location, class, whatever your segmentation may be, and switch it up there. Once you get into the customization options, you'll see we can also add that underneath the individual account if we want to add the department, class, or location. And we can also add it as a column. So don't worry, we can slice and dice this by accounting period plus your dimensions if necessary. If you click on the More option, this will give you more options for filtering out any of your classes, customers, departments, items, or locations. Again, this gives you a little bit more flexibility if you do want to slice and dice your financial reports. In this particular instance, I'm just going to simply keep it as is. Moving down to the footer options all the way to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a little wrench icon. If you click on that, there's some options here you can tailor to your report. However, this isn't very common. The next options are going to be the collapse or expand icons. Now, these are helpful if you do have a lot of data. If you're viewing the detail, you can simply collapse or expand. And once we customize the report, you're going to see we can actually default these to a level if we want. So every time you come into the report, it can be collapsed totally, or it can be expanded to your desired layout. The next icon is going to be the graph. I will say nobody uses this graph. You can click on it. It doesn't give you much information here, so don't be surprised if you don't see much here. It's not very widely used. The next filters are going to be if you want to export this out to Excel, PDF, CSV, or Word. You can go ahead and export those out. You can also print this. I would recommend just exporting it out to one of the file formats that you see on the screen in the bottom right-hand side. You do have an email option if you want to email this report out. And then you also have an option if you do want to schedule this out on a frequency, whether it be daily, monthly, weekly, whatever frequency that you would like, you can schedule this particular report out for your financials or any report within NetSuite by using the schedule icon to the right-hand side. We're not going to get into the details there. On this video, if you are curious, you can go to Suite Answers or the help section to understand how to schedule, although it is pretty straightforward. The last option before we get into the customization options is going to be this SQL. If you do want to have the SQL code behind what makes up this income statement, you can go ahead and click on this and it will download that SQL format. All right, that's enough of the footer options as well as how to access the detail or summary. The next thing we're going to do is to see how we can actually customize this income statement report. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the Customize button on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And once you click that button, this will take us into the Financial Report Builder page. Now, again, this is going to be specific to your report that you're customizing. In this case, it's going to be called Custom Income Statement. First thing I would do is rename this. Instead of the Custom Income Statement, you can call this whatever you would like. I'm going to call this Sample Income Statement. And once we name that as a label, we will be saving this or previewing this as we go along with our different layout options and columns. Before I get to previewing and saving this, the next thing we're going to do is get to the layout. So this is the most important piece of the Financial Report Builder within NetSuite. So what you're going to first see is the default. This is how it's built by default. So if I collapse this, you're going to be seeing some sections. So this ordinary income and expense section, this entire section right here is going to be a header and summary row. right? So on this drop-down layout, you're going to see some different options. You're going to see a header and summary row. You're going to see a financial section. You're going to see a formula row, and you're going to see a text row. This first one is actually nothing. So you see add row / section. This won't do anything. You're only going to be using the 4 options down below here. But that first one with the header and summary row is going to be just like you see on the screen with this ordinary income and expenses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add that here just to see how I can replicate the out-of-the-box financial statement in NetSuite. So I'm going to click on Add Header and Summary Row. And what this is going to do is it's going to add a new header and summary row. So you can see it says new header row, new formula row. So if I want to replicate what's already existing on here, what I can do is click on the new header row, scroll up here, and you're going to see this header label. So I can go ahead and label this. I'm just going to replicate what is there right now. I'm going to call this ordinary income / expense number 2, right, as the header label. And then my formula row, which is going to be the summary, I'm going to call this net ordinary income number 2, so just so you can see how this is built. Right, so once I tab out of that, you can see exactly that. Now, the default one that comes in the system also has financial sections. So you can see what's built in between here is going to be an income, cost of sales, gross profit. Now, this income is a financial section. I could go in here and modify that, which you'll see in just a moment. But instead, I want to replicate what's there just to start off with out of the box. I'm going to add a financial section from this drop-down layout. So I'm going to click on Add Financial Section. And it's going to ask me, do I want to insert an existing section or create a new section? I always recommend just create a new section. It's easier that way. If you want to add an existing section, all it's doing is it's taking the account types out of NetSuite and setting those as the default. But I find it easier just to click Create New Section here and click OK. Now, once that's created, you're going to see that new section layout will be showing here. It's in bold here. It says New Section Row. Now, I don't want to end the existing one. I do want to mimic this in my existing one that I just created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this new section row. I'm going to see this child of, right? So you can drag and drop this to where you would like it. However, I find it easier within NetSuite if you just go to this child of and select the section that it should be in here. So I'm going to select ordinary income / expense number 2, and it will automatically go up to the section that I created. Now I'm going to do the same thing that I did before with creating that header and summary row. I'm going to simply call this income number 2, and I'm going to display the row. Now within NetSuite, we do have some options. So we have some header options. Obviously, we gave you this label, whether we want to display it, and then the total label. So if you do want to have a total section within that, you can go ahead and give this a total label, and whether you want to display that row or just not display it at all. Child of, we just saw how this is going to be in the child of that header and summary. Whether we want this expanded, so do you want all the accounts to be shown that are income accounts? Do you want this to show all the rows? Now, if you don't want that, you can go ahead and collapse the section or cannot expand. So I'll show that in just a moment. I'm just going to keep it as the default with expanded. That is important depending on how you're customizing the financial report. The next field is going to be the group by. So the group by, you can actually have sections underneath that particular income count in this example, whether you want to group by account, which is most common, and then if you want to group it also by one of your segmentation, whether it be department, class, location, customer, etc. So I'm going to keep that blank. I'm just going to use account. That's the most common. If we want to add in our department, class, location, we can add that as a column here, which you'll see in just a moment. The next field is going to be a marker. This is just a reference, basically. If we are going to be using a KPI within NetSuite, that is less common, so I'm just going to keep this blank. Most likely what you're going to see on the screen here is the default option, and this is what you're going to keep. Moving down below to the sub tabs here, I have section, format, and account order. This is very important when you're customizing any of the financial reports within NetSuite because this determines what's going to be showing on the actual report itself. So for this filter, we have a couple different options. We have account name, account type, account number. We can also include or exclude certain departments, classes, locations, customers, items, and subsidiaries. So we can really slice and dice what goes in this particular financial report on this row layout. Now, if I go into the standard income statement, what you're going to see is the account type is just income. So natively, all it's doing is just saying, hey, within this section, the income, just pull in my account types that are income. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to go back to income statement number 2, and I'm going to say account type is income. All right, I'm just going to click OK here. Now, if you do want to expand on that, if you just want to say you want to have certain account numbers, You can also do that. You can say account number is XYZ, and then you can keep adding there. You do need to add them one by one. So if you were to add in your account number is, let's say 6,000, you will need to add in 6,001, each one individually. And you can remove the account type because this would just say you want your specific account numbers to show up within that section. So if you preview that, that would show you just these account numbers that make up this particular header. Now, in my example, I'm going to remove these and I'm going to just do the default, which is account type, and I'm going to set this to be income. Now, if I go ahead and preview this, I have two income sections now. I have income 2, then I have the normal income. Now, a key point when you're customizing the reports is NetSuite's only going to show the first one that shows on the particular report. So it's not going to show both of my income rows on here. Remember, I have income number 2, and then down below here, I had another income showing, which is the native one in the system. But NetSuite by default is not going to show two accounts when you customize the financial report. But in this case, you can see how my income statement is made up, and it shows income number 2. Now, this is expanded. Remember, that's the default. So if I return to customization here, and I change this display from expanded to collapsed. So let's see how this looks. And you can see the section is now collapsed, and I can expand that and it will show the actual account. And then finally, if I want to go ahead and make that cannot expand, you will see no expansion whatsoever here, right? It's just going to show the account or that row, that financial row, and what makes up that. You can certainly look into the details if necessary. I'm going to go to return to customization here, and that's really the options. You can also have some additional formatting. We're not going to get into this as this is pretty straightforward. One thing to keep in mind is the reverse sign. So if you are seeing positive or negative values and needing to reverse those signs, you will want to go ahead and check that box off for both the total row as well as the account row format. Then lastly in this sub list is going to be the account order, and this will show you what makes up this particular sections based on my section itself. And here I'm able to customize the layout of what shows first. Now this is sorting ascending. As you can see, an account name is ascending. You can do descending, or you can do a custom layout if you really wanted to and change the format of where these show up within that layout. And it's all very easy just to drag and drop here if you do wanted to have a different layout versus the ascending. Now you would do that for all of your different financial sections here, right? So the cost of sales, you would do the same thing. If you want to add a new financial section, you would just click on add new financial section, create a new section that would add that to the report. Again, you can drag and drop this on where you want it to be, give it a relabel, and change the account filters down below here of what counts that you want to make up that particular section. The next drop down within the layout is going to be the formula row. So as you can see within the native income statement with the ordinary income and expenses, we do have a formula row set in here, which is going to be our gross profit. So I click on the native one with gross profit. You can see how this formula row is made up of. It has a label, it has the child of, and then lastly, which is important here, is going to be the formula. So what this is doing when I add the formula row, which you'll see in just a moment, all it's doing is it's taking my row of income and it's subtracting it from my row cost of sales. If I want to mimic that in my section that I created, I can use the drop down, click on add formula row. Again, that's going to add it to here. You can change this with the child of, and I'm going to change this to be my one that I'm mimicking as a duplicate, and I'm going to change this to be gross profit number 2. And I can drag and drop that to the bottom here. I'm going to change this new section row to be cost of sales number 2. So you can see how this particular formula row works in action. So if I get down to the formula itself, there's an operator here. I don't need the operator for my first row. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say type is, I could do a constant value if I wanted to. So I could put an actual value. I could slice and dice how I want this formula to be. But I'm going to say I'm going to take my row of income number 2. I don't need a parentheses. And I can simply subtract it as the operator from my row of cost of sales number 2. All right, it's easy as that. You have some additional options here in the top if you want to change the formatting of the font, the actual dotted, if you want to slice and dice how this looks, and then you can simply click on preview here. So you can see how this looks. It is bolded with my formula here with gross profit number 2, and it's simply taking my income minus my cost of sales. Now I don't have a cost of sales row, so it's not actually showing me any values. If you want to see the values within that, you can go ahead and return to customization. If I click on more options here in the header, there is a show zeros option. So you can click the show zeros options and the more options, click preview again. And what you'll notice is my cost of sales number 2 now shows up. Again, it's all zeros, so you will see this. And again, if you want to customize this and not make it bold, you can easily do that in this header section. Now, since I did show zeros, it's showing me the native layout, right, with my ordinary income and expenses and my income and cost of sales. Remember, it's only going to show your account once in here. So whatever made up my income is not going to also show again in this section. All right, so I go to return to customization. The last option here underneath the edit layout is going to be add a text row. So if your financial reports that you present to the board or internally, you have a text row, you can simply include that and then it'll add a new text row. You can put that wherever you want. This can be blank if you want. You can just add some spaces. If you want a blank row, you can see it says blank row. You can change the format if you would like. But if I go ahead and preview this blank row, you'll see now there's a blank row within my particular sample income statement. You can really customize this and the format and the font to how you would like. Same with your accounts that make up each of these individual sections. In my example, if you do want to exclude a particular row, let's say I want to exclude income, I can go ahead and simply click on income and click this X. Now, it's not going to allow me to delete this income because it is referenced by a formula row. So I first need to delete the formula row and then I can delete the section. Since I am replicating this, I simply need to go to my gross profit, click X, and it's going to say this is also referenced by another formula, which is going to be my net ordinary income. So if I click on my net ordinary income, I can go ahead and remove this formula that's in the summary. If I go ahead and remove both of these, I can then now delete my sections. If I go to gross profit, I can remove that. I can remove my expenses, cost of sales, income, and then if I want to delete the header and summary row, I can simply do that. Again, if it's referenced by something else, I would need to delete that formula. Okay, so if I go back to my net income here, I can change this to be referenced by the one that I just created. So I'm going to change that here in the formula, and then I can click on the header and summary row and simply remove that. So that's a very high level overview of how to actually customize what goes into the layout. I would recommend starting with the native items that are listed here. So in my case, if you do want to customize within other income, other expenses, income, you can easily do that by clicking on the financial sections, clicking edit criteria. So there's a button here that says edit criteria. This is going to say basically that you can't edit the standard section. That's fine. It's just going to duplicate this. Click OK, and then you can slice and dice what goes into each of these financial sections. So in this case, it's saying account type is other expense. You can simply add on to this and maybe exclude an account number if you want to say it is not a particular account. So you do have some options here. Once that's done, keep in mind this is, if you do have multiple subsidiaries inside of NetSuite, you do have a layout here. So right now I am customizing this income statement, and it's using my custom income statement layout CA2. This is going to be applied to my particular subsidiary that is listed up here with my parent companies consolidated. But if I want it to be used for all of my subsidiaries, you can do that underneath Reports, Financial, and Row Layout Assignment. Once we go to the row layout assignment, you can find the report that you just saved. So if I go back to this sample income statement and save, this is called sample income statement. Now, if I go back to that row layout assignment and I refresh the page here, I should be able to find sample income statement from the drop down here. And what you'll notice is the parent company consolidated has that layout that I just customized. However, for all my other subsidiaries, it is using a different layout. So it has a completely different layout and options than what I just customized. So it's important to note, if you are on this page, you're going to want to go ahead and turn on inline editing here is the recommended approach. Go to your particular report itself and change each of the subsidiaries to be that same layout. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and change my parent company to be using that custom income statement layout number 2 and do that for every other sub that I have listed here. This will ensure if anyone is changing the subsidiary on that particular report that it's using that same layout. So this is very important to note that you do need to come here and add this to each of the subsidiaries to make sure it takes effect when viewing the report. Once that's done, I'm going to go back to this sample income statement and simply return to customization. The next column subtab I have here is Edit Columns. Now this is important when you're customizing the financial reports, as typically a lot of times customers and clients will want to add in their departments, classes, or locations as an additional column or an additional row. To do that, you can simply click on the Financial section, and if you're going to want to add your department, class, or location segmentation, you're going to want to go ahead and scroll down to the other tables that actually are labeled department, class, or location. So in my case, I have a class here. So if I can expand the class field, I can add in the name. If you simply start typing in class within the search fields, you will not find this to add because the actual label is called name. So again, if you are adding in department, class, or location fields to your financial reports, you're going to need to expand the financial area, find the field table called class, department, or location, and then add in name. So if I simply click on name here, this is going to add it. You can drag and drop this to wherever you would like. So I'm going to keep it right here next to the amount. And if I go and preview this, you will see my name is added as a column. Now I do not have a name listed in any of my transactions here. I'm going to add in my department to be next. So if I go to return to customization, I can expand the financial area, go to my department in the same manner, add a name, drag and drop this. You can also use the move left or right buttons. Simply click on preview and that will show me my department as a column. Now, the reason why it's not showing me anything here is because my income number 2 is collapsed. What I need to do is if I go return to customization, go back to my edit layouts, go to my income number 2. I want to change this display to be expanded, which again, it is the default, and simply click on preview again. Once I click on preview again, this is going to be expanded with my accounts that make up that, and you can see now a department shows and is broken out by the respective department. Again, I have no class here, but I do have a department showing, which is expanded underneath my sales. Don't like this layout as a column, you can return to customization. You can edit the columns here. I'm going to remove my class just because there's nothing in here. So I'm going to remove the column. And for my department, I'm going to simply click on group with previous column. So if I click this button, this is going to add this in a row underneath my financial section. So if I can preview this, it's going to look a little different. It's not going to be a column here. It's going to be simply underneath my sections for sales. So very similar if I were to do that on the account layout, which I'll show in just a moment. So if I return to customization, click in department here, I'm going to remove this column and I get back to the default. I'm going to go to edit layout here. I'm going to change this then by, right? It's a group by account. I'm going to change this to be department as my then by in preview. So see how this looks compared to what I just added. It's basically the same thing that got added. So that's the couple different options to slice and dice your reports by your segmentation. And again, remember at the beginning of this video, I showed you how to use the filter for the accounting period with the column. If I return to customization and go to edit columns, feel free to add any additional field underneath the financial section. You can use the search. However, I don't recommend it. I actually recommend going underneath the actual financial section to find the field label, as it could be called differently like we just added with our segmentation. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the filters here. Filters for financial reports. These are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to get into it in detail. You can go ahead and change the backend filters if you want. You can remove specific filters as we saw at the beginning of this video. Pretty straightforward if you want to add or modify the filters. Sorting, you don't need any sorting within the financial reports, so there's no sorting within this sub-tab. So I'm going to skip on to the last option here, which is going to be the more options. So within more options, this is key as there is some additional options. The first thing is cash basis. We're going to keep that unchecked, but if you do want to run the report on cash basis, you can go ahead and check that, which is not very common. Show zeros. If you want to show all the accounts that make up the financial reports, you can click on show zeros as you saw before. Activity only. So if you only want to see activity within those accounts, you can go ahead and check that box off as well. However, the show zeros, since everything is zero within our particular accounts, that will take precedence. Show on reports page, what that will do is it will show up underneath the reports, saved reports menu option. Show currency symbol, pretty straightforward if you want to show the currency symbol on the particular output. An ID, if you want to change the default ID that goes with NetSuite, And then I talked about the expand level. So if you want to default the expand level when you get into this report, you can change this preference to be one of the various options, whether it be collapsed, expanded, or at a different level, which NetSuite gives you 1, 2, and 3. So if I want to change this to be collapsed all, and I go and preview this, everything's going to be collapsed by default. If I go back to return to customization, the next field is the drill down report. Now, this is very helpful if you want to tie the reports together, not only the summary, but you can also tie the detail report. So first of all, you would customize this summary report. So I have this called sample income statement. I can do the same thing if I want to do on the detail, and then I can tie these two together on the drill down report. When somebody drills down into it, it will use this particular report. Just keep that in mind. If you don't change this option, it's going to be using the standard income statement detail report out of the box. Then we have the owner, which is myself. Feel free to change this as necessary if you are modifying or customizing a report. Then lastly is going to be the audience and access. Now there is a big difference between both of these. A lot of times people get confused between the audience and access. Audience is what you're going to want to grant users access to this report. So you can go ahead and change this as a role, subsidiary, employee, whatever it may need to be here, versus access. Now, access is actually going to trump their permission, as it will give them access to this report, regardless if they have financial report permissions. My recommendation would be to always give the individual user's audience access here, right? So just go ahead and select them as an employee. And then if they have the underlying permission to view whatever financial report it is, they will be able to access this report. However, use caution in the access subtab. And lastly is the audit trail, which will just show us an audit trail. NetSuite has made some nice adjustments here, as it will show us the actual component type that any user changed here. So this is helpful in some instances if you do want to see what exactly was changed. So those are really the high level overview items of the financial report builder within NetSuite. Always recommend to save or preview this every couple minutes so you don't lose your work. NetSuite does time out after 15 minutes if you do not save this according to them. So it is recommended to at least save this once every 15 minutes if you are beginning to customize a report. However, as you saw here, I like to preview this as we go along just to make sure things look good. Once you do save it, you can go ahead and find that underneath reports, saved reports down on the menu options. And then you could also find this by global searching the name of the report. This concludes the NetSuite tutorial on how to customize financial reports. I hope you learned something, and please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.